Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where we've been working on this Silero lander here, and it requires some work specifically in its first stage. So let's work on powering that up exactly like we talked about in the last episode. So first thing I'd like to do is detach the SRBs. We're just going to keep them off to the side for now. And then we're going to detach all of these fuel tanks, and I want to boost this up to a radius of maybe about 2 meters, like that. And then this here, we're probably, this tank, what did that do? Oh, that made things awkward. Okay, I see. Sure, we'll make this be also a 2-meter radius. There we go. And what I really wanted to do here is change around this, but apparently we have some issues with that. Okay, sure. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this here, and we're going to want to move those up for sure. But for now, that will do, because I want to detach the engines here, and we want to put some amount of them. My question is, what is our thrust to weight right now? Okay, so that's 0.43. That obviously is going to need some help, and some of that will come in the form of these SRBs. But we also are interested in potentially adding in some symmetry on these engines, which apparently we cannot do. Okay, that is exciting, because we're rooted up here. Okay, so what happens if we fully detach the engines and then put them on like this? Yeah, that's still rooting it on the same way. So I think the way that we're going to have to do this is detach this, select this guy, and then it has to be the primary part. Right, that's not going to work either. Okay, well, we can definitely increase the length of these hemispherical tanks. And then I guess we're going to have to do this kind of manually, where we would put in a set of engines here. And looking at this, that's now 0.66x. I'm expecting this to be 4 engines in total. So that is now 0.89, and that is now 1.12. So that gives us a positive thrust to weight ratio. Next, what I want to do is I want to grab these and move them up so that they are at roughly the same height as all of these other engines. Okay, there we go. That seems fine. And you can see the price definitely went up from that, but that's not surprising. Now, I want to put in some of these SRBs out over here, and we can definitely think about increasing the power level of the SRBs if that's necessary here. We can see this is 1.74 off the ground, so that seems reasonably fine. Now, let's check our staging here and see what this feels like. So this is all of the Mage engines and all of the Phoenix rocket motors here. Then the SRBs are going to detach. Then the external booster tanks are going to attach. Okay, I think this is correct in the staging. Let's see how the flight feels. And we can see this is currently going to cost somewhere around 150 million. We still have a large amount that we can escalate this. We're getting like 2.88 billion for this, right? So we can escalate this up in terms of build size a lot if we feel like we want to. We kind of don't necessarily need to right now, but it's something to think about. So let's go ahead and take off here. I'm going to set our pitch, well, at 90 for now. We're going to be a little low thrust to weight, or lower than what we've been. Okay, now I'm going to pitch us over to about 70 degrees. There we go. I'm just watching our thrust to weight, and I want to check this internal fuel tank. Yep, that looks good. We knew that that should remain good. And then the SRBs and the external fuel tanks. Okay, this looks like a good long burn then. Beautiful. So SRBs are going to be running out of fuel shortly here. There they go. Get out of here, SRBs. And other than that, we are propelling up at 1.6 thrust to weight. That is not bad. So looking at the overall amount of fuel remaining here, this is currently about 50% fuel remaining. And what is our current apoapsis? Plenty high to be pitched over. So let's move us move ourselves over to about 30 degrees or so. And we're definitely going to want to be holding this apoapsis or having it increasing. It's currently increasing, so that's noted. Okay, what's our orbital velocity? About 1 kilometer per second right now. So that's noted. It looks like we have enough TV to probably make it into orbit here. So 60 kilometers on the apoapsis. I'm going to drop us down to 15 degrees on the pitch. We've still got 25% fuel here, so that's looking good. 70 kilometer apoapsis. And time to apoapsis is increasing right now. I'm dropping us down to a 0 degree pitch at this time. We're having an apoapsis that is up plenty high for the moment. Our side boosters are going to run out of fuel shortly here, so our thrust to weight is going to go down. But that's fine. So 3, 2, 1. They're out of fuel. So we get rid of those, and we're on just this now. But that had a full fuel tank. So at this point, we still have about 1 kilometer per second here. And that's looking really, really solid. Our thrust to weight is about 1.0 at this point. Okay, so far so good. And I'm not sure about the timing to Silero, so that's going to be interesting. Our deadline is 600 days, right? So that's going to be interesting for sure. Is that time to apoapsis going up or down right now, is the question. So we're at about 100 kilometer apoapsis. We really don't need to coast, though. I'm fine with bringing that apoapsis up further. So for now, this is looking absolutely fine. We're just going to continue to accelerate up for the moment. We've got about 50% fuel left in this stage. And that's looking fine for the moment, but we're definitely running out of oomph a little bit on this booster. No doubt about that. But we are up to about 3 kilometers per second. Not too bad there. And time to apoapsis is definitely increasing at this point. So let's bring this apoapsis up to, I don't know, maybe like 150. Should be reasonably fine if we have the fuel to do that. I don't know that we do. So let's put it at 120. Okay, engine shutdown. So we're going to, at the apoapsis here, we're going to do a burn to put ourselves into, ideally, a fairly circularized orbit. So that's going to be something kind of like this, right? So that's going to put us at 219 meters per second. We've got 206 in this stage. So, I mean, this does deliver us basically to orbit. So there is that. We should probably open our solar panels. So we'll do that. The question is this a real flight at this point or not? It kind of depends on our Silero transfer, I think. But we're going to dry run through the planetary transfer sequence here at any rate. So we'll see how that ends up going. So obviously we're going to run out of fuel here. But we're basically at orbital velocity. We're in orbit now. So that is absolutely wonderful. Okay, so there is our orbit. Not bad. So let's do the interplanetary transfer run here. So we know that we're going to be targeting Silero out this way, right? So we know that we're going to be heading outward, which means that it's been a while. I can't remember which way we're going to want to go. Do we want to burn on this side or the other side? We'll find out. Okay. So a transfer of... Where is this taking us? Okay, that's awkward. We are having an encounter with both of our moons at this point. Sure. And you can see that this is actually giving us an encounter somewhere out here. Wild. Well, I definitely don't want an encounter with both moons like this. Let's go ahead and try it out over this way and see what that's doing. That is pushing us out that way. Okay, so if we had a good transfer, it would be something like this, right? I don't think that we have a good transfer window here, but something like that. That means 1.43 kilometers per second to get to Silero in theory. And then I'm not sure what our braking burn there would end up being if we had a good transfer window, which we almost certainly do not. So that's definitely noted. Okay. So I don't think we need to push this out anywhere near this far for right now. For the moment, let's just put ourselves right about here. And let's go ahead and execute that burn. So that is going to be a pretty lengthy burn, and this is claiming high accuracy. 3.4 minute burn. Okay. So we're checking our fuel transfer here. Fuel transfer looks good, actually. I don't see a fuel transfer issue. So that looks correct. I like it. We have about 2.8 kilometers per second here. So this seems fine. The real question is the Silero transfer window, right? And if we're in a terrible transfer window, we probably need to wait for a better transfer window. The question is, how long would we have to wait for that? Well, we can calculate that to some degree. So that's fine. We just wait on the ground, right? So this isn't ticking. That would be the idea. So we're about 28% of the way through this burn. Let's definitely accelerate this burn up a bit. That looks fine. And eventually these fuel tanks will run dry. But this is looking absolutely good for now. I'm actually surprised that 4 fuel tanks are fully feeding this. Interesting. I would have assumed it would have required 5. But I guess this is probably because we have these vacuum optimized. Or not exactly optimized, but they're different engines, technically. Or at least different nozzles than the other engines. So that's fine for now. We're going to push our way on out of here. Let's go ahead and exit the time warp for the moment. Okay, so we are in this position now. So we should just go ahead and we should target Silero. We'll select that for now. And the question is, if we were to plan a burn here, where would we be in comparison? Well, this isn't exactly telling us. So I think we need to change sphere of influence. So that would mean warping out to about here. There we go. Let's just warp our way on out. And we can see that's 20 days gone right there. So this is what I'm saying when I'm saying that we need to be careful about our transfer window, right? Okay, we're not quite out of this yet. There we go. Now we changed over sphere of influence. So the transfer window is definitely a concern. So this would be, the burn would happen here in like 137 days. So we can see where that would end up being. Well, that's going to, we're definitely going to want it to be out over here. And I'm still wondering, is this from when we accepted it? Or when we take off? That's an interesting question. We may want to check that. We're not actually getting predictions on an encounter here. I'm not seeing where Silero is when we get to the nearest point. Like, we're not getting a nearest point thing because we haven't targeted it. Okay, there we go. So in that case, we know that the nearest point is going to be around over here. Yeah, this is going to be a little awkward for sure. So this would have been the approach info out over here, right? We would want to do the approach out this way. So we would bring this out, but we'd also need to dial this in over radially a little bit. to have an approach be something like that. So that's 128 megameters. We can dial that in a little bit more for sure. So that's 800 kilometers. That is a collision on something. Okay. Let's turn that sensitivity way, 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 way down. And let's bring this into, I don't know, this should be pretty decent. So we'd be getting there in 1.74 years. Now, how long is a year in terms of days in this game? I don't know. That's an important question. So Juno New Origins year length. How long is a year? I don't know. I guess we could just warp forward and find out. That's an option. We knew when we launched this that we would probably be in a bad transfer window, right? And this is definitely a bad transfer window. No doubt about that. We could maybe find a better one here. I'm going to quick save here, and we might revert back to this quick save and see if we can find a better transfer window than this. And let's see what this is. What we can see here, we would arrive at the burn here in 353.2 days. So I think that tells us the information that we need to know, which is that 1.7 years is cutting it really close. Really, really, really close. Because this is telling us that a year is probably 365 days. So in that case, we can open up a calculator here and do 365 times 1.74, which gives us 635.1. We have 580. So I don't think it's worth even trying to run this. Instead, we should probably try to find a closer time to do this, but this transfer window is pretty abysmal, to be honest. We could dial it in out this direction, and that will save us some time. I'm wondering about how much radial burn it would take to do this. Our transfer window is definitely terrible. And I wish that it took the transfer window into account when giving us these. I wonder if we can change when we lift off. We must be able to do that, right? Because this doesn't take the transfer window into account. So this must be the deadline from liftoff, is what I'm assuming. So if that's the case, then what we should do technically is we should revert this, and we should take off when we're in about like 334.68 days, right? In like 300-ish days. And that would give us a much better situation there. No doubt about that. Now, one thing we could do is we could do this burn at a different time, right? We could do it out over here. And that would shave off some amount of time, for sure, at the cost of needing to do a bunch more DV. So there is that option, but I kind of want to pull this back at this point. And actually, before we do that, I want to check real quick here. So this stage has 1.53 kilometers per second in it, but I'm not sure how that's being counted. Yeah, okay. So that's understood, but I want to pull this back, and we're going to retry. We're not going to undo an exit because I'm fairly content with the liftoff there. But now what I want to do is I want to see about fast forwarding until we are, in terms of Silero, probably somewhere around here-ish. So let's see if this deadline ticks. It does. Okay. So that means that we want to be in position before we accept the contract, then. Okay, let's restore from the quick save. That told us some information, and the information that it told us is not good. Not good at all. So let's select Silero here, and that of course means that we have this approach here, This is in 1.74 years, and we know for a fact that that's going to be too long. So we need to bring this in out over this direction, right? And we're going to have to throw a lot more DV at the problem. So that means that we would have to come out over, like, this way. If we dial this in, hypothetically, what are we looking at for timing here? Okay, so something like this, that would be 1.64 years away. This is a lot more delta V, and I'm not necessarily okay with that. But how many days is 1.64? So that is 1.64 times 365. That is 598.6. So that is still on the far side of where we need this to be. So we need to find something that is a lot less than that. If we were to plan a burn here and do a radial burn kind of like this, we'd have to change the timing on that quite a lot. Okay. We may be able to do some kind of a compound burn and have this come out over here, and then a planned burn up this way, which would be a radial burn, which would have it be something kind of like this, right? But the timing on that is going to be spicy. Really, really, really spicy. So that's not really an option. We're going to have to find a very strange way to get there because of the time constraint. Normally what I would do is I would just be like, well, we can burn sometime around here, and we can get ourselves a rendezvous out over this direction. We can take an orbit, burn sometime around here, next orbit. But that's going to be too long. We can't wait that long. Just because of this time constraint. So that's not an option. You have to factor in the time constraint before you accept the contract. And that's very strange to me, because you can't really know exactly where you are in terms of how long it will take you to get to Silera without, like, some serious math, without having a craft in position here to run these calculations. So that's a little bit of a weird thing. No doubt about that. I'm wondering right now if we could do a burn sometime up here, right? And bring it up this way. But this is calculating it out beyond an orbit. So that's not actually an option. We would instead have to bring it down this direction. But even then, we're in approximately the worst possible transfer window. Okay. So, as a secondary question here, so if we undo and exit this, as a secondary question, is there any way that we can do this without launching this craft? Like, for example, what if we were to go to the main menu here, and we resume flight on the station? The station is clearly not intended to go to Silero, and it is a wrong craft. So if we were to warp time it here, does this tick the deadline? Let's find out. It does not. Okay, that is a serious development. That is a very serious development. So what that means is that we can warp time forward until we are about here or so from here. I'm going to quick save in case I mess anything up here, but let's just take this up to 250,000x, 1 millionx. It is ticking. Never mind. That's why we quick saved. Okay, so I'm going to quick load then. So that's not an option then. Okay, so we're in a terrible transfer window here. We're going to have to redo the launch, we know that. I'm just wondering, maybe we should take a different approach in terms of how we exit the system. We might be able to find a timing there to make this work. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now. So it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to lift this guy again. And once we do, then we're going to find ourselves a Silero transfer window from orbit of Drew, I think. Because that's the only way that we can really make this work in this transfer window, I think. And even then, it's going to be inefficient. 600 days is a pretty tight transfer window when you are in an optimally bad location when you accept the contract. But lesson learned, and we'll see what we can do about this. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy Magar, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Hiro Marutsu, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.